we have for you? What do we have in store for you on the program today? Well, we come as usual bearing a solution. So let's get right into it this evening. Have you heard of branchless banking business, or simply put, agency banking? Does it ring a bell? Well, agency banking is what we have brought for you today. How it can make your business and personal finances better. If it is profitable, we'll bring it to you. I mean, we can't help it. So I'm going to be introducing the other members of the Money Gang this evening, and they are some of the very best, most brilliant and experienced finance experts. I mean, I tell you, they have decades and decades of experience in this sector. So you do something for me quickly before we get into it. Tell someone about this show, okay? Pick up your phone right now. If you're not driving, of course, pick up your phone right now. Make a call to your friend, your family member, someone you think would need this information about finance, about money. Call them and tell them to tune into Radio Nigeria, wherever they're at in the country. The reach is nationwide. So whether they're in the village, in the urban areas, wherever it is, tell them to get a radio and tune into Radio Nigeria. Right now, it is a matter of urgency, matter of national importance, okay? Do not listen to this alone. Tell them that this is where to be right now, okay? They can also listen online, as I said earlier on. Go to smegrowth.ng. Okay, so let's get into this. Agency banking is our focus this evening. I tell you, this information will profit you by all means. So let me introduce our panelists. Yes, it is a full panel this evening. I have someone right here with me in our studio in Lagos. He is seated right opposite me. Mr. Chukwudi Ibe is the transaction and electronic banking man of Keystone Bank. Good evening, and thank you for joining us on the program.
Thank you, Kayode.
It's good to have you again. Last time we had this was, I think, last year.
Easter last year.
It's good to see that you're very committed to enlightening people about their finances. Thank you so much, Chukwudi.
So much.
Also joining us via Zoom is Eidiame Okoje, who is the head ATM business at Polaris Bank. It's good to have you, Ehi. Thank you for joining us on the show, as well as Aloy Asenokai, who is a regional head, in fact, a regional manager, I should say, agency and direct banking, FCT and North Central for Echo Bank, also joining us virtually. Thank you for joining us on the program. We also have Benga Omoloko, who is the MD and CEO, VFD MFB. That's, of course, Microfinance Bank, is a SANEC partner and super agent, also joining us virtually. Gentlemen, thank you for being a part of the show this evening. So let's get right into it. I mean, you are part of the Money Gang by virtue of being a part of this show. Oh, not to forget, we just have joining us It help you do better with your finances, make better money decisions, and ultimately be better for yourself and for our economy. Well, I think naturally I'll start with you right here in our studio, Chukwudi. Agency banking, it sounds really tech. It sounds very cool, Agents 007. What is agency banking, Chukwudi, in the most simplest form?
Thank you once again, Kayode. Agency banking or branchless banking actually involves carrying out empowering third parties out there to carry out financial transaction for license of traders, like the financial institutions and the mobile money operators we have out there. Agency banking is actually regulated by the CBN. It's not something you just start doing without having that. You must actually get licensed by the CBN so you can do that. So banks and MMOs are actually licensed by CBN. And for you to do that, you have to actually apply to CBN, part of the necessary requirements and all that before the CBN can empower you to carry out that. And when as an FI or MMO who's actually doing this, you then have to go out there, recruit agents. It could be super agents, it could be soft agents, sole agents that would then go out there in the hinterlands or where people are and make sure that they actually get the services. And this service is actually a whole lot. They can open account with agents.
Yeah.
You can actually do for
just before you get into that nitty-gritty, you made use of some terms. FI. MMO and FI? I think that means
Yeah, FI means financial institution,
with MMO.
mobile money operators.
Fantastic. So essentially, agency banking is banking, but on a smaller scale.
Exactly.
Does that make sense?
That's what it is.
Okay, so you heard it here. Agency banking is sort of banking, but on a smaller scale, closer to you wherever you are. So you see that this information is very, very important for you. A lot of people say, well, the bank is really far from me. I stay in the hinterlands. Okay, the bank, if I get to the bank, I will trek 2 kilometers, take a motorcycle for 10 kilometers, and take a bus. So no point going to the bank. But guess what? That has been literally eliminated now with agency banking. So let's get into what agency banking really does. And I'm going to go to our guests virtually. Don't worry, it is a full panel and we'll all be a part of this. If you're listening to us on air, online, wherever you are, you can also be a part of this. So you can call us on 0810 608 1681 if you're interested in this conversation, which I imagine you are. It's about money, right? So pick up your phone, call or message us on 0810 608 1681 or 0818 202 5883. I'll take that again just one more time. 0818 202 5883. You can be a part of this conversation about agency banking, whether you have questions, contributions, whatever it is, call us or message us. So let me go to Uche, who is joining us virtually. She's the only lady amongst us. And just before I came to you, Chikudu was about to get into just what you can achieve with agency banking, but I'd like you to take us through that, all right? What are the opportunities with agency banking? What can I do as someone staying in the farm, in the village, or wherever with agency banking? Uche. Well, Uche, if you can hear me, I'll need you to unmute so we can hear you. If you can hear me, I'll need you to unmute, please, Uche.
Okay, thank you. For agency banking, as my colleague has said, it is the opportunity of reaching out to rural areas, those unbanked areas where you have people you can access basic financial services. So the opportunities are there. There's so many opportunities, such as the proximity for the fact that you can get an agent that is within your locality. It is a very good opportunity for you to deal with somebody that you are known, convenient. You know the person that you are dealing with, an agent within that locality. Agency banking has made it possible for people, no matter where you are, no matter how remote their location is, you will be able to access basic financial services. So these are the opportunities. You have the proximity, you have the convenience, you have the flexibility, you can withdraw money, you can, there are so many opportunities out there. So it is really a key to financial inclusion. Very key. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Uche. Thank you for that one, just essentially walking us through what the opportunities are with agency banking, the types of transactions that can be done through agency banking. And I just wanted to throw this in because, as we started talking, I know that a lot of people would start picturing the popular POS operators. They're like literally everywhere you go right now. So I'd like to ask, and by way of just introducing Alloy into this conversation, how are they different from POS operators, or are they one and the same? Help us understand this, Alloy.
Okay.
Yes, we have
thank
to
you.
Yeah. Okay, I'm not the one.
No, this is for Alloy, actually. Pardon me.
Okay, so basically, there's a difference between agents. So because colloquially or on the streets, what you call them generally is that you call them POS operators. But basically they are agents. Professionally, they are agents. They are agents. So what happens is that the bank engage for you to be able to process financial transactions outside the banking premises. You have agents. They are properly trained, they are certified, and they provide these services. They provide services such as cash withdrawals, cash deposits, of course, accounts opening. They also provide carding services in some instances. So basically, a POS operator can be described as anybody who holds a POS machine. For example, you go to fuel station, there's a POS there. You go to a supermarket and stores, there's a POS terminal there. So a POS operator can be just broadly defined as anybody who uses a POS machine. But an agent is actually providing financial services. You know, those services that naturally you go into a bank premises to access. What the banks have now done is to give you, just like my colleague said earlier on, the easy access. So rather than jumping on a bus or entering a cab to go to a bank, I can just take a walk down my street and withdraw money or send money or deposit money or even open a bank account. So it gives you that proximity and convenience and ease of access to financial services. So anybody who is engaged by a bank to provide financial services on its behalf is an agent. Is different from a POS, but generally out there, what you have is POS operators. POS operators. You hear people saying, I want to do POS or I want to go to POS. That's a local or that's a generally acceptable term. But from the financial perspective, an agent is anybody who has been engaged by a financial institution to provide financial services on its behalf. So let me quickly add this. Most times you find out that there are localities where you have human population, but it may not be economically viable for you to establish a brick and mortar, a bank branch, for instance, with all the paraphernalia. So what happens is that the bank can also provide financial services in those areas by taking advantage of existing businesses within those areas and deploying agency banking services within such communities or localities or isolated areas. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Aloy. I'm glad you provided that breakdown essentially. But just quickly as a follow-up, so how can you tell the difference really? How do you know who is who? Do you just go ask them? Is there a way to identify from afar that okay, this is just the POS operator? That
okay. So basically,
is an agent, a representative of the bank, strictly, Aloy.
Okay, so basically, most times when a bank appoints an agent, there's what they call branding commercials. You find out that the bank will brand that agent location. You come to the place, you see, oh, this is so agent. You see the banner. You see the banner of agent. For example, I take an example, an EcoBank agent now. You see an EcoBank banner there. You see a signage showing you that this is an agent location. Yeah. The agents also have what we call agent certificates displayed in their location. They have agent certificate displayed in their location to give confidence, because just like when you go into in those days, I don't know whether I say happen, you go into a pharmacy, you see the certificate of the pharmacy hanging for you to know that this is a certified pharmacy and all of that. So banks also ensure that apart from the branding commercial, there's a certificate that they issue all their approved agents. Also, the CBN has also done something very wonderful. There's already the SANEF. SANEF has a certificate that they give banks to issue all approved agents. So you have the signage, you have the branding commercials, and then you have the certificate that shows you that this is an authorized agent. Thank you.
It's easy to actually identify. I also come to Benga Omolokun, because I mean, this is an area you know very well. But let me get Ehi in on this conversation about agency banking, the possibilities, which I mean are literally endless, and how we can improve our daily financial activities and help us essentially make profits. Ehi, in addition to some of the things you can achieve with agency banking, also walk us through how, so that we know just how rigorous or perhaps vigorous the processes of getting agents to represent banks in those areas? Just how rigorous is the process of getting the agents? We'll talk about this more next week, but just to scratch the surface.
Oh, yes, thank you. So agents are actually selected by the banks, right? There are certain requirements agents are supposed to have before they can be classified to be agents, right? So for each of these several banks, like my colleague had just mentioned, you walk into a branch, you need to meet certain requirements that makes you eligible to be able to conduct agency banking for that bank. So for example, your identification, you need to be sure that you can guarantee the safety of not just yourself, but also the safety of the funds that you would be collecting on behalf of the bank. And like he also said, you'll be having access to the bank's branded paraphernalia. So whoever they're going to be selecting as an agent, the bank has to be sure that that person will be able to represent not just the brand of the bank, but also the image that the bank is trying to portray for the bank. So yeah, that's one of the things they look at in selecting, these agents to run the agency banking for banks.
Well, thank you very much, Ahi. So let's go to Benga now and talk about this on a bigger scale generally, because I saw some data earlier on this, I think it was this morning, saying that 64.1% Nigerians are now included in that finance net, so to speak. And I mean, I had to speak to the work that the Bankers Committee and the CBN has been doing in, ramping up information, enlightenment to people wherever they are about the opportunities available to them in the financial services sector. But just how important would you say agency banking is, especially because there's still more people that are unbanked? Yes, there's been improvement in people that are banked, but just how important is this in the whole scheme of things? And perhaps speak to our economy and unemployment and all of those indices we see, and we say, well, we should be doing better in this.
Right. Thank you very much. I think the importance of agency banking can't even be underscored, right? So think about the rural areas. When there are not a lot of places where you have formal banks, and where you have these banks, there's a lot of not a lot of people feel like they can walk into the banks because the bankers don't look like them. The bankers are wearing a suit and a tie. Meanwhile, the guys in these areas are either farmers or small business owners, right? So they can't really recognize themselves there. So they feel intimidated when they walk into the banking hall as well. So, but with agency banking, the guy on the street who is acting as an agent for the bank is my cousin, is my friend. He's more approachable. He's using this gizmo. I can ask him about it, and I feel more connected to it. I think agency banking has done a lot more for acceptance of digital financial channels, as well as banking as a whole. I think a couple of years ago, a number of banks started announcing closures of their branches in a lot of the rural locations because it wasn't viable to actually operate those branches. Now, that bank branch that would typically have employed maybe 5 people, of which 2 of them must have come from, or even most of them must have come from the urban areas, can now devolve into easily 10 agents in that entire area, right? Those agents will carry out pretty much every single thing the bank would have tried to achieve in that area: facilitate transfers, facilitate receipts, even cash outs, even other things like bill payments, right? I typically would not expect that I would walk into a bank to simply buy airtime. But whilst I'm having a conversation with my cousin who is an agent, I can actually buy airtime. I can transfer money to my friend. I can repay my loan, or I can actually even save money with this same bank that has pulled out. So I think in terms of job creation, remember that bank branch that had 5 people can easily create up to 10 agents in that particular locality. In terms of ease of transaction, I'm no longer intimidated with this nice looking building with air conditioning and a security man that
will look at me funny before I walk in. I can actually walk up to this individual and carry out my transactions.
Oh, brilliant. Thank you, Benga. I just want to quickly follow up on this. So you are, VFD is a microfinance bank, just so we can better understand the industry well. I don't want to say the chain, but basically what it looks like. So can you help us build from POS operators to agents, bankers, if I could use that term, to microfinance banks, super agent? How does it really build up, grow up? It sets me up for my next question, but I want you to help us to understand that chain, basically, from the bottom to the top, if I can use that.
Yeah. So to a large extent, I wouldn't really say that there's a chain. I think more, I would say these are more symbiotic relationships, right? So even as a microfinance bank, CBN's charge to microfinance bank is to serve this the underbanked, right, or to also try and push financial inclusion. But then again, even within microfinance banking, there are structures, there's compliance requirements you need to put in place. So having an agency banking network allows even not just the microfinance bank, even the mobile money operators, or even the large commercial banks to actually expand their base, right? In terms of what's then different between us, say an agent and even a large commercial bank, the mandate for credit for microfinance banks is largely these individuals that are underbanked that would typically not be able to go to a commercial bank to borrow money. I think up until recently, when some commercial banks started giving payday loans, if you went to a commercial bank and said you wanted to borrow 50,000 naira, right? You couldn't do that. It was very difficult. You still had to come up with the same amount of documentations and structures as the guy who wanted to borrow 50 million naira. Microfinance banks, unlike a number of non-CBN regulated lenders, have some regulation driving and managing the rates and even our operations and activities. So an agent, for example, with our foot soldier that can help even the microfinance bank reach these customers in terms of credits, right? It can also facilitate repayment for the microfinance bank's loans from these same people. So it also slightly aggregates them for the microfinance bank. Both microfinance banks and agents will still have some dependence on the larger infrastructure of a commercial bank, especially around things like settlement, interbank settlement, when somebody is moving money from one commercial bank to another, or even from the microfinance bank to or from another commercial bank. You still need a commercial bank that's backed by CBN or with an account with CBN to help manage that entire process.
Thank you very much, Benga. You know why it is important to have all of this information coming at you, so you understand how the ecosystem works, as you know, listening to us right now, and you can better interact with it. I mean, if you don't understand something, the tendency is that you will not interact with it, you will not approach maybe mobile agents and the rest. But when you know the kind of work that goes on behind the scenes, the kind of regulation that you can trust, you know, mobile agents, I know that, or agents, bankers, sort of, and you can trust them and approach them. In case you want to be a part of this conversation, our lines are open. So pick up your phone, 0810-608-1681. I promise to take your calls. Okay, we didn't have time last week and the week before, but this week, 0810-608-1681 or 0818-202-5883. Again, 0818-202-5883. We're talking agency banking on the show this evening, and we have a full panel. Let me come back to Chukwudi here in the studio. And, you know, listening to Benga and others speak about this brought me to this fundamental question, because we're speaking to the Nigerian out there who has maybe a small business, who has some money, probably saved up, and there's so much opportunities in the banking sector, but still people ask, why should I put my money in a bank? By extension, with, you know, agent bankers, why can't I just keep it under my pillow? Why can't I just, you know, do different things with it? So what is the value? What is the advantage of using banks, this time through super agents? What is the need for me, really, Chukwudi?
You have to take care of it. First of all, let me start by the real way you have to save your money.
Mhm.
You actually any interest when you save your money. Or coming to agent banking or having it's working through it agents and all that, it kind of makes it easier for you to even put the money in the bank. Agency banking more, I call it inclusive banking. Banking closer to me, proximity banking. So you're actually close to me. I don't have to walk down to the bank to brick and mortar, which may be far away from me, to go and deposit money.
Yeah.
I have like my colleague rightly said, you have your cousin who's out there who has agency banking platform close to you. You can just walk down to him, deposit that money, and it gets into your account immediately. Can you probably transfer it to another account you have somewhere else if you want to save that money? You know when you save money, get interest from it. And the more you can save your money, the more interest you make. So having agency banking makes it easier for us to, as in the ease of access, very easy, ease of access is actually there. Did you understand?
Indeed.
So instead of having to inconvenience yourself, traveling all the way down to the bank, which may be like 10 kilometers away, but you have someone next to your shop or next to your house, you can walk down to and paying that money and save that money for yourself. It's actually quite cool and something everybody should actually encourage.
Because I know these questions always come up. Why do I have to do banks? You also get access to, funding, for example, which is something we dealt with last week and the week before through banks. But you need to have a record. You need to have some sort of interaction. You need to have your foot in the door, as they say. The opportunities are literally endless, as we say, with the banking sector. And we're glad that more and more people are beginning to interact with the banking sector through these agents. I mean, the data was released earlier on and it speaks to that effect, but we can still do much more. So if you're listening to us today and you have questions, perhaps you're skeptical, you're wondering about security. Yes, it's my cousin, but my cousin has run away with money one time now. So what's going to happen? Call us, let us know some of those issues you have, send us a message and we'll get the experts here to give you the right answers you need. Don't forget, our goal here is to make you better as an individual in your finances and your business as well. Better for yourself, better for the nation at large. So pick up your phone, send us a message, call us. We are here for you. You're still listening to the Financial Literacy and Public Enlightenment radio show brought to you by the good people at the Bankers Committee. Uchenna is still here with me, Ehideme, Aloy, Chukwudi, and Benga from different players in the financial services sector to answer your question about agency banking. But we'll quickly go to break. And when we return, we'll talk about that security bit. Yes, you have those questions about how secure your money is with agency bankers and the rest. Not to worry. We'll be back in just a few seconds to take on your questions, your calls, your messages, and much more. Stay with us.
Yeah.
I know, I'm sorry. It was meant to be a preamble to the question, but it just came up.
And don't ask them, take your transaction. And if you don't get bank account, visit your bank. Let them open up for you. Last. Of course, we get this message. Bankers Committee.
Happy life. Are we good?
Well, ladies and gentlemen, you're welcome back to the Financial Literacy and Public Enlightenment radio show brought to you by the Bankers Committee. I'm Kaido Kikulu, and I'm always delighted to bring you nothing but the best financial advice from the very best minds in that sector. We still have with us 4 gentlemen and a lady. Uchenna Obodoikwe is the Group Head Financial Inclusion, Fidelity Bank PLC. Ehideme Okoje is the head ATM business, Polaris Bank. Aloya Senoka is a regional manager, agency and direct banking, FCT North Central at EcoBank. And Chukwudi Ibe, right here in our studio, is a transaction and electronic banking point man. I'm giving you that at Keystone Bank. And of course, Benga Amaloko is MD CEO, VFD Microfinance Bank. That's a SANIF partner and a super agent. We're talking agency banking this evening, and I tell you, the conversation has been nothing but insightful, really. I'm learning a lot of things that I didn't quite know about agency banking, the difference between POS operators and the agency banking, and just how rigorous the process is, how it has revolutionized, finance sector, and more importantly, why you should be a part of this. So let's switch things up and talk about that security bit. Chukwudi, let me begin with you because we went on break just with you as well. Security, it is a big concern. I mean, with brick and mortar, as they say, brick and mortar, by the way, is the traditional banks, the banking hall, the building. With brick and mortar, at least you know that there's a location, there's an address. You can go and pitch your tent there just in case anything happens. And you know that there's also the insurance for your money in banks. But with agency banking, what kind of security do you get?
Yes, thank you very much. Security is actually very key in banking. Security has to do with trust. In agency banking, you cannot consummate a transaction without the use of either OTP or your PIN. Like you as a customer, you walk down to an agent's location. You want to cash out money, want to do cash out, you give him your card, he punches the amount he wants to do and all that.
Mm-hmm.
The agent has his own PIN and all that. So you put your own, at the time that to ask you to put your card PIN, you put your card PIN, agent will put his own before you can that, before the card transaction will be consummated and you get your cash out and all that. So without those PINs, transaction cannot be consummated. That secures you. Another point of security when it comes to agency banking is in the process of recruiting agents. You don't just recruit anybody you see. There are criteria that you follow. First of all, in line with CBN guidelines, you must actually have a visible business within 12 months before you can actually start agency banking.
Oh, really?
Yes.
So you don't just wake up one morning and
Absolutely.
say, oh, okay.
Absolutely. And there's a credit check that's done on a prospective agent who wants to come on board. If you actually default, if you have a credit that defaulted in the last 12 months, you cannot be onboarded as an agent.
Okay.
So this is actually part of the things that you look at before you can actually make someone an agent. So it makes the whole system secure and trustworthy.
Beautiful. Let me come to Uche now, virtually, and still on this security bit, excuse me. It is a very important part of the conversation. It's like a deal breaker for a lot of people. They may have heard stories, true or not, but these narratives have a way they impact on people's psyche and how they approach agency banking, which, by the way, as we've said, is to their benefit. So tell us more about just how secure agency banking is and the work that is done behind the scenes, so whoever is listening to us can be assured.
Yes. I'm here to tell you that your money with an agent is always secure. Why? They represent bank. They represent other operators. However, you must know that the organization the agent is representing, you must know that organization. Agents are meant to be extension of banks. So this will give you security, this will give you comfort that if anything goes wrong, you know where to point at. So the POS and the devices these people use, these agents use, are very secured. For instance, in Fidelity Bank, for us to engage any agent, we have processes. We have processes on what to do. And every transaction is consummated with an OTP. You must have an OTP. If you come to any agent, there must be an alert OTP. So that will give you a comfort. It's through that number that you have, and there must be a PIN, as my colleague said. You must have your OTP, which must come only to your bank, to your mobile phone, and PIN to go with it. So you are really, really covered. And you are aware, you know that agent, that agent is well representing a financial institution, any bank. So if you have any issue, you know a pointer where to go. So if a customer approaches an agent with a card, he must know the card PIN. That PIN is key. So what you have and what you know, these are the rules. So once you know all these things, as a customer, you are fully secured. So you shouldn't be any scared. Thank you.
Going to call us if you have questions. Let me say, if you still have doubts, which I will imagine is not the case, but let's just imagine you have doubts. 0810-608-1681, 0818-202-5883. These are the numbers to call. We are here for you, all right? So still talking about this security bit, just how secure it is. Let me go to Aloy, and this is just a just-in-case scenario. I mean, because there are extreme cases where things happen, you know, people try to play a fast one, notwithstanding all of the security measures that are in place. What are the channels for resolving possible cases of, I don't know, possible theft, whatever the case is? What are the channels to resolve these issues? So we know that there's also a plan B, aside the plan A, all of these fail-safe options. Aloy.
Okay, so basically, every bank that operates has agency banking has a help desk, a helpline, and also a dedicated desk for resolving issues. The first thing you do when you onboard an agent is actually to make those dedicated lines and that desk, avail them the numbers, and then, of course, even the support group and the WhatsApp chat rooms where issues can be immediately resolved when they arise. Yes, the truth of the matter is that there are times where issues arise, maybe a transaction failure or maybe a dispute between the agent and the customer that visited the location. But there are safety nets or safety valves, as the case may be. Every bank has a dispute desk. Every bank has a customer support desk or an agent support desk, and every bank has a hotline that an agent can quickly call and report a dispute. So because these are institutionally approved channels for transacting, there is no fear out there that if I transact with an agent, my money will get lost. Because transactions are real-time online. Let me put it this way, transactions are real-time online. And let me cite this scenario. Recall in those days where people normally buy recharge cards across the country. So when you go to a recharge card vendor and you give that recharge card vendor 1,000 naira notes and say, give me recharge card worth of 1,000, and he gives you a recharge card in exchange for your 1,000 naira, nothing was lost. You have exchanged value and you move on. Whatever he does with that 1,000 naira happens not to be your business. So when you go to an agent location and say, credit my account or credit this account with 5,000 naira, the agent collects the money and transfers the money immediately and gives you proof of transmission, and you leave. So it is, the transactions are consummated real-time online. There's no delay. So you won't say, oh, I left my money with that agent and he ran away with the money. No, there's actually nothing of such. Transactions are consummated real-time online, and it's a secure channel. And when there are disputes, when disputes arise, every bank or every agency banking institution has a dispute desk and a resolution mechanism to sort out all these issues. Thank you.
Brilliant. So you hear this, there's a plan A. If just in case plan A doesn't work or there are issues, there's even plan B. And imagine there are other plans along the pipeline. Thank you so much, Aloy, just for clearing that out. Let me come to Ehi now on this one. It's a very tricky one, but I imagine a lot of people are thinking, so what is the future with agency banking? Does that mean that the traditional banks will be pushed aside eventually? Am I a part of this, this perhaps possible exodus of brick and mortar? Tell us, is there any threat to, the traditional banks with agency banking? Does this banking model threaten brick and mortar in any way?
Yeah, no, absolutely not. Just to also ride on what Benga had mentioned earlier, where he gave an example of a brick and mortar building, bank branch that had to shut down because not only was the cost of running that branch really high, it was also, difficult to be able to serve the entire community. So breaking that down into several other agents, those agents represent that particular bank. So you don't see them as competition to the bank. Instead, you see them as value add, not just to the communities where they serve, but also to the bank in which they represent. And then over and beyond all of that, right, it also ties into the narrative of financial inclusion for the bank, where you are not only, making it possible for communities in the hinterlands of the country, in the most remote areas of the country, to be able to have access to financial services, you are also giving them the same opportunity to be able to have a relationship with these commercial banks that they represent. So absolutely not. I don't think agencies or agency banking are, a competition to the banks. However, if you want to have a conversation about the other players in the space of agency banking, that might be a conversation for another time. But when it comes to agents that represent financial institutions, I do not think, absolutely not, they do not pose a threat in any way to those commercial banks, because they are actually an extension, for those commercial banks to continue to do businesses in those areas.
And in any case, the more, the merrier. The sky is wide enough for everyone to spread their wings and just fly. Thank you for clearing that out, Ehi. I'll come to Benga now, and I want to do this. Speak to that person listening to us this evening again. It needs another layer of some sort of convincing about agency banking, and perhaps to ride on the question I had asked at Shukudi earlier on about why do you need to engage in this? What is the need for you, really? Just to reiterate, I mean, we've talked about the channels to resolving issues. We've talked about just what this is, the difference. But just again, if anybody's listening and is wondering, what are these people on about? This is just some way to collect my money from me. I am not letting go of that money. Let's speak to that person, Benga.
All right. Thanks for that. I think and unfortunately, CBN, a lot of the banks are putting quite a lot of processes behind the entire agency banking infrastructure. I like what the other panelists have spoken about regarding security. I think that's already covered. There are reporting mechanisms that allow you to ensure whatever happens, you can always get to the bottom of it. The agency banking framework also ensures that every time you go to an agent, you must receive evidence that you've carried out a transaction, which is the printout or the slip that they give you. So ultimately, you're protected from from various sides, right? So why do you want to? Think about it. Do you want to walk or take transportation to a bank branch, stand on a queue, get in there, fill a slip just to be able to transfer money to that person somewhere in another state or somewhere, to make a repayment? Meanwhile, you could just go to the corner and meet an agent, validate that this person is a valid agent of a particular bank or any bank, or that the person is a valid agent, and you carry out your transaction. There's no queue. You don't need to fill reams of paper. You don't need to write a letter begging to apply or to beg or to request for anything from the bank. You simply get the transaction done very quickly, right? So I think the ease of banking is fantastic with agency banking, rather than having to go to a particular or to any bank branch. Beyond that, even being able to bank with any bank you want, you go to an agent, you can open their account. I think there's been quite a lot of conversations in the market or in the media about financial inclusion, and why this is important is, wherever you go, it's important that you have an account that someone can reference. You have an account that someone can say, okay, well, you've been doing this business, or as an individual, you've had consistent income into this account over time. So therefore, you can now start looking at credit. If you don't do that simply because you don't want to bank with an agency banking partner, and you find it difficult to go to a bank branch, then
Yeah.
I think you're actually just cutting your nose to spite your face, really. I think the positives are a lot, and for me, one of the biggest positives is the ease and the quickness with which a transaction can actually be carried out.
Thank you, Benga. I was in a banking hall earlier on, just before the show. I just wanted to have a feel of how people are taking on all of this information. And I saw the queue, and I wanted to start evangelizing to them that, have you heard about agency banking? Some of the things you're here to do, you can actually do it with your agent banker closest to you, because I imagine a lot of them had to take transport. You know how traffic is in Lagos, right? So they had to probably sit in traffic. Some of them had to even walk just to maybe withdraw that money or send that money to someone. But guess what? That is what we're talking about here today. You do not have to go through all of that stress. You don't. I mean, life is easy, right, with agency banking. So next time you want to perform that transaction, don't think of the brick and mortar bank, okay? I love that expression. Brick and mortar essentially means the traditional bank. No, think of the closest agent to you. Let's take this call now. We have a caller on the line. Good evening, and thank you for joining us on the program. What's your name? Where are you calling from? Right, Bengaljo, thank you for joining us from Maryland. What's your question?
Yes, my question is about this online banking service providers. What step are the CBN and NDIC or any other doing at least sure actually registering for this some of this instant banking provider, that is your number, for instance, your phone number is your account number. I have a situation last week that somebody called out and they put money that so just because instead of paying for the bank company and I wanted to pay for an assistant. So I asked, okay, if I start in the hospital, give me the database. It's okay, thank you. Online banking.
Right. Okay. Right. Right. Some other information. So essentially your question is about regulation. Okay. Right. Okay. All right. And I think that's a really important question. Thank you so much for that. It's a very important question. Okay, quickly, you have 10 seconds. Right. Okay. All right. Thank you very much for your question. Very important. I mean, these are real questions. Yes, it is outside of the purview sort of the conversation we're having, but I don't know if we have any takers in terms of regulation. I know that is at the table of the regulator of the banking sector, but in terms of trying to get issues sorted, I mean, he talked about transfer and all of that. I don't know if we have any taker on this particular question. Generally speaking, this is not speaking to any particular financial institution. So do we have any taker? Benga Chukudi Aloy, Ehi Uchena. Anybody wants to help out?
Could you mind repeating the question? It wasn't very clear.
Yeah, it wasn't clear. The question
Okay,
wasn't-
well, his question was about instant accounts or instant financial institutions. I'm trying to phrase it well. Financial institutions that help you use your mobile number to open an account instantly. You could put any name. So his question is about regulation, because it says people open the account with different names and different things happen. We recognize that this is at the table of the regulator, but regarding that, essentially, maybe you can provide some insight for him.
Okay, let me go first, right? So I think ultimately the question is about what institution is this, right? For any institution regulated by the CBN, there is a defined framework that backs account opening, right? So you must provide certain information, including your BVN and all. And the financial institution typically would look at the BVN you have provided, as well as your name or the ID that you have provided, right? And also look at the person. So even though some institutions, including mine, do a number of these things digitally, there are ways to do it digitally, right? And a lot of this is also transferred to the agent. So when you go to an agent, as an example, and I know this person wasn't talking about agents, but I'll also relate it back to that. When you go to an agent, you can't open an account with an agent if you don't have a BVN. You can set up a BVN with some selected agents who have been equipped with that capability. But what that also does is it means that the BVN agent can see you. I can validate this is Benga, this is what Benga looks like. Look at the documentation that you have given the agent and see that, yes, it is indeed the same person. So even with this, with any institution or organization that says, just give me your phone number, I can open an account for you. For most of the larger financial institutions regulated by CBN, there is always a second step where there's some validation that needs to be in place. If anybody says, give me your phone number, there is no validation, there is no way to confirm who you are, then I think you should be suspicious, right? Even the PSBs, the telcos, they already have your name, right? So back end, there's some level of validation that happens. When you go to a telco, when you open a Momo account and you give them your phone number, they're able to validate that phone number based on the person who registered the phone number. So I will say again, if someone is asking for just your phone number and there's no other validation, no means of really saying, this is Benga's phone number, how do I validate that this phone number is owned by Benga? And it could even be that, they send an OTP to that PIN with some other information, which is not public for the person to validate. I think you need to be wary of that, right? But there are frameworks guiding this as stipulated by CBN.
Thank you so much, Benga, which is why you need to be a part of this show every Monday, 5 to 6 p.m. All right, you get the right information. There's so much happening out there, but you can trust that right here on the Financial Literacy and Public Enlightenment Radio Show, we give you nothing but the right information. We are tested, we are trusted. I could go on and on, but this is the right place to be, essentially. We're winding down now. It's been a very, very interesting time with the Money Gang this evening. And I would like Uche to have the last word on this as we wind down. By the way, this conversation continues next week. We'll dive deeper into just how you can use agency banking to sort yourself, to make money, to provide employment, to get engaged. Okay, there is that opportunity in agency banking. So as a way to just open up into that conversation, Uche, just help us scratch the surface. What are the other benefits aside, saving, transferring money and all of that? What are the personal benefits to my finances that I can get as an agency banker? Can it take me out of poverty? Because we actually have a lot of poor people in Nigeria. So is that also a sure way to get employed and to get out of poverty?
Yes. Yes, it might not take you out of poverty, but it can secure your funds. I'm using this opportunity to tell everyone out there that agency banking is a channel I am encouraging everyone to key in. As a customer, it gives you the confidence and proximity you desire. The agents are trusted and the transactions are very secured. I can bet on that. It is also an opportunity for one can embrace as a business with a little cash at hand, or even in the bank.
Right.
You can easily set up agency banking. Very easy.
Indeed.
Yes.
I mean, you have whet our appetite. But let's pause there because of time and just tell our listener out there that next week we'll be talking about agency banking as a means of financial empowerment. So do not miss that conversation. Make it a date with us next week, 5 p.m. on the same channel. A Financial Literacy and Public Enlightenment radio show will be coming your way again. But I'd like to appreciate the team that has made this show a success. Bolanle William is Director, FRC and Lagos Operations. Maria Owoma is Assistant Director of Programs and Producer. And of course, the engineering team, Latifah Latunde, Daniel Koye, Idowu, Eusebio, and Real and Oladejo. Thank you so much. Till next week when we bring you some more profitable conversation. I remain Coyote Okikilo. Remember,